All right, give me just a second here. Start. Wow, awesome. 300 people. My name is Larry Gammon, and I'm a member of the Al-Anon family groups, and I am a grateful member. And, you know, my wife told you I was a mess. I'm still a mess, but maybe a little different, I don't know. So, yeah, it's Gratitude Month, and come to find out, our Al-Anon birthday is in Gratitude Month, November 19th, 2005. So that's about 18 years in a row, which I have heard said before. Okay, just a second here. This is a really small little podium up here. So let's see here. Got to Al-Anon in 2005. And I thought that my first introduction to alcoholism was actually my brother or my son. But a few years ago, it occurred to me that it was my friend John Thomas. Helen and I used to live in Alaska in a little place called Elfin Cove. And I used to commercial fish, is how I became familiar with this little place called Elfin Cove. It's a fishing charter town. And I got the contract to build their community building for them. And so while I was making those arrangements, these other guys approached me and said, oh, we bought some property out there, and can we put our materials on the barge with you? I had a big old crane on the barge and a cement truck. It was a big barge. And I said, yeah. It was a couple of guys I knew from Juneau, and one guy I'd never met before. His name was John Thomas. And so we spent some time getting loaded up, you know, and then we went out to Elfin Cove, and I got to be friends with this guy. I really respected him. He was a contractor down in the San Diego area, Fallbrook, as a matter of fact. And I loved this guy. So, but they left, you know, at the end of they got their lodge built, but they would come back every year, and we'd meet and rekindle and have dinner together and go fishing together and stuff. So in 1989, Elfin Cove is a place you kind of want a vacation from in the wintertime. The population is about 25, and there's no roads in, there's no roads out, airplanes only, boat if you're tough enough. So we went down and visited John, and God, he had a beautiful house. He showed me around Fallbrook, all these building projects he had done. Beautiful wife, beautiful young daughters. And God, we had a great time. So it was a few years later. Matter of fact, in my recollection says it was 1995. I have a daughter that lives in Juneau. And I went up there. And the other two guys that were partners with John told me he was in the hospital. And I said, hospital? What's the matter? Well, he's not really in the hospital. He's in the detox 28-day inpatient treatment program. And I went, what? John Thomas? I mean, I had no idea that he was alcoholic. So I went to visit him, and there was no doubt about it. He was in bad shape. This blew my mind. This successful, happily married wonderful man, was alcoholic. And in the years since 1989 and 1995, he'd lost everything. His wife was gone, his family was gone, his house was gone, his business was gone, all his money was gone, and then some. And I just couldn't believe it. Anyway, I wanted to help this guy. So Helen and I invited him down to live with us. I ended up going to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous with him. We went to lots of meetings. Is the Little Red Church barely onto the res out there on Marine Drive? Yeah, okay, I see a couple of thumbs out here. We went there, yep, there's another one back there, and other meetings, and there was something going on there, and I couldn't put my finger on it. I was raised Catholic, right? 1 through 9 in the Catholic high school, went to Mass every day, and I never felt in that church the way I felt in those meetings. So that was and I never heard of Al-Anon. Nobody ever said those words. So John lived with us for a while. One funny story, it's not that funny. Helen and I were on our way home from somewhere, some night. I'd let him use my truck because until he got his feet under him, he had to have a way to get around. He worked for me, as a matter of fact. And Helen and I were going home one night, and holy cow, just down over the bridge, there was about 4 cop cars, lights whirling, and we drove by and Helen went, "That's our truck." Anyway, poor John didn't make it. I went and got him out of the Cherry Hotel down on Evergreen Way one time, and he'd come to work, and I'd have to keep my eye on him because I'd see him walking on down the street. He was out of here. But my first introduction to alcoholism, and it was a dandy. John's dead. He left one day. I just came home, remember that? And he had his truck backed up to the downstairs door. He gave him his own room downstairs, and he was leaving. And he just said goodbye. He could not stop, and he left, and I never heard from him again. So that was my introduction. And so when I got that phone call from Helen from school, Lucas has been expelled from school. Lucas, my oldest son, was expelled from school. He had brought a thinly disguised, apparently, jar or some container with alcohol in it, and he was busted in the boys' bathroom drinking my peppermint schnapps. I hate peppermint schnapps. He can have it, but in the bathroom with his buddies, that was 8th grade. So how old are you in 8th grade? 12, 14? 1482. That was 1996, about the same time I was watching John. But I figured, big deal, did anybody here not drink in high school? Well, wait a second, this was middle school, which come to find out isn't that early after all. I thought it was at the time. But, so I just said, well, send him home, and he came to work with me. Turns out he was really good running a chop saw, and I was a builder. That's how I got that job out in Elfin Cove. I'm good. Is that better? So do I have to start over? whatever. Where was I? Oh, the peppermint schnapps and that bugs me. That ain't. So he came home and finally through some way, usually you do get allowed back in school after a certain amount of time. And that was that for a while, till that fateful night when Sheriff Brown called up. I don't know if his name was Sheriff Brown, but he says, yeah, we got Lucas and a couple of his friends up here at Valley General Hospital. Nobody's too badly hurt. Somebody bumped their head on the windshield. Same truck John was driving, as a matter of fact, bad luck truck. And when you get a phone call in the middle of the night, that was our first one, man, your eyes pop open and your heart starts beating and you don't go back to sleep. Well, we weren't getting anyway. We went up to the hospital and got Lucas and now I'm starting to go, what is going on here? Well, he said Lucas had owned up to first-time marijuana use. And I don't know, This is a long time ago. This is 25 years ago. I can't really remember all the details, but and you know what it says in the book? Never gets better, and it didn't. And so then started the DUIs, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, why don't you stop this, And at first it was just conversations, then the conversations got more animated, and then they got louder, and I wasn't going to be able to make him stop. There was other issues. It came down to name in the paper. My dad calls me up one day. He says, "Yeah, son, have you read the paper today?" I said, "Yes, I saw it, Dad. Arlington man arrested." And I'm leaving out a whole bunch of stuff because I really don't remember it, because I tried not to. And by this time, we were at war. I just didn't understand this. What is going on here? I saw John, and I saw what happened to him, and I'm going, is this going to be Lucas's end? So, of course, eventually it came down to, lawyers, judges. A certain judge in Arlington at Cascade District Court, maybe some of you know him. I got to know him. I'd be in court sometimes when Lucas wasn't. As a matter of fact, one time, the lawyer was there and I was there and Lucas wasn't. And I dashed out of there and I drove over to his place and I bashed on the door and, God, Lucas, you're supposed to be in court. And anyway, I got a call from, what was his name? The lawyer. And he just said, don't come here, unless you're prepared to go to jail right then and there. And as it turns out, it would not have been the first time that certain judge said, are you Lucas's dad? And I go, yeah. He knew that by then. I never missed a court date, For some reason, he had his mail, certain parts of his mail, that part where they notify you of your court date and your citation and all that, and they all looked the same. they're in a white envelope, and they're yellow inside, and I couldn't stand it, I had to see what was in there, so you can hold it up to the light and hold a flashlight behind it. Helen said what was your description? Nuts? Bad shape. Was that it? Anyway, and when that wouldn't work, we steamed them open. I mean, it seems funny now, looking back at it, right? But it was not funny then. Lucas had another ticket, DUI, court date, and, I had lent him the money, $6,500, to get his first lawyer to get the deferred prosecution so he didn't have to go to jail. I used to say, if I can just keep him out of jail and keep him alive, at this point, I'll settle. I'm a good dad. I loved that boy. He was a good athlete, and he was a good scholar, and he was really popular at school, and he was a good boy. And I completely lost sight of that. I had become completely overwhelmed by the things that were going on, and Lucas and I were going this way, I'd call him, and that when he was a real gregarious guy, so when his phone rang, he looked at it, and he saw it was Dad. I ain't answering that. It was really hard. And then, I'll just hit the high points, I guess. Then came the time when it was either jail, because his deferred prosecution didn't work out so good. You're not supposed to be going before that certain judge again before a certain amount of time has elapsed. It's not that long. It's only a year. It's a long time for Lucas. And he was confronted with, you either go to jail or you go to treatment. So I scurried home and got him a bed date. And I don't remember exactly. And it was, and he was supposed to go back to court real soon so he could report that he had this bed date, so he didn't have to go to jail, I think. But he was partying the night before. And I said, Lucas, you got to go before the judge in the morning, and they have magical ways to tell if you've been using or drinking or not. And, you're going to jail. And sure as heck, that's exactly what happened. And that certain judge said, okay, the bed date is 2 weeks away. You're going to county for that 2 weeks. How are you going to get to Yakima? He said, you going to take him? And I said, yeah, I'll take him. So on that fateful day, holy crap, my throat is getting dry here. Is that our water right there? So I got to go pick Lucas up on the corner of Pacific and Wetmore. Some of you may know where that is. It's a certain door out of the county jail. And God, it was good to see him. And I gave him a ride over to Sundown. I get a little quavery voiced. I'm not going to cry. But this, what? Okay, yeah, I might. So I gave him a ride over to Sundown. And on the one hand, it was really sad for me watching, this counselor guy came out and got him and said, give your dad your phone. And I don't know if I finished that story or not. Anyway, I'm jumping all over the place. And come with me, and I just watched him walk away with that guy. Turns out he was a really good guy. And in, holy cow, in 3 weeks they had what they call Family Day over there. And I went over, and I got to spend time with Lucas in his program and go to group with him, and we were supposed to write letters, which I just bawled like a baby when I read mine. But his counselor, there used to be a place in Stanwood called the Center, some of you may know that, had told me, Larry, don't worry, they're going to fix him over there. He's going to come back a new man. I really wish he hadn't have told me that. On my way over, I remember it was a beautiful day. You're heading west over the pass, on a Tuesday morning. And I just had tears just streaming down my face, thinking, I got my boy back, I got my son back. That was not the case. Always worse, never better. And the ironic thing is over there during one of our groups, there was probably 30, 40 of the patients, and then it's Family Day, so their families are there, and we're all in this big room, and this woman stood up and said, if you guys want some help, if you want some help, go home and find an Al-Anon group. I go, what the heck is that? I mean, I told you I'd been to a bunch of AA meetings with my buddy John, but I'd never heard of Al-Anon. I never heard of it. So I did. I scurried home and looked in the phone book for, by the way, I don't know, things just are kind of coming back. Lucas didn't ride home with me. On that last day on Thursday when we were there, I heard this little voice go, hi, Larry. And I looked over my shoulder. There was his girlfriend, who I was not particularly fond of. And it's a no-brainer. He ain't going to ride home with Dad. He's going to ride home with, what was her name, Jess? Yeah, we forget. Where in the heck was I? I was just coming back home, scurried home by myself. And just a second. And I looked up Al-Anon in the phone book. It wasn't there. But I'll tell you who was there. I dialed 425-252-2525. Where's Steve? Yeah, we just talked about that the other night. The central office in Everett. And somebody answered the phone. You guys were doing your job, and you saved my life. Maybe. And they said, yeah, let me see, I didn't get a schedule here somewhere. I know they got a schedule there now because I brought it there. I bring them there. And there's a meeting out in Lake Stevens in this church, blah, blah, blah. So that was November 19th, and it was a miserable evening. And I was miserable anyway, so what the hell, might as well go. Well, I mean, I didn't know what the hell's Al-Anon. And it turns out that it was in this church basement. I hope Ardell's not here. But anyway, I was not impressed. Some little old ladies all huddled up in their trench coats, seemed like trench coats, and knitting, you know. And I don't remember a thing that was said, but I was desperate, you know. I wanted a life with my son. And I got a schedule there. And there was a meeting 2 days later, or was it the next day? It was Sunday on Camino Island. It was called Courage to Change. By the way, that's my home group to this day. Courage to Change, Sunday night, Camino Island, Camino Lutheran Church, barely onto the island, 6 p.m. Sunday nights. We love double winners. We love members of Alcoholics Anonymous to come to our meeting. We say that at the beginning of the meeting in what we call our clarity statement. Oh no, down to 3 minutes. But Joe said I could go 40, so I go to this meeting, and the lights are on, and there's no trench coats, and nobody's knitting, and they're laughing. I mean, they look like they're having a good time, and remember, I said there was something going on at those AA meetings. There was and I felt it again. I guess. Thought I was getting the hook. But, and I started getting a feeling there might be some hope. And I met this guy, and I asked him to be my sponsor after a couple of months. There was hardly any men in Al-Anon back in 2005. Anyway, he didn't know what to do with me. I mean, he took me to a couple of meetings, and he was only a year into it longer than I was. So after 6 or 8 months, this woman who was in my home group, her name was Annette, she called Helen and said, "Larry's a mess. Can I sponsor him?" And Helen said, "Yeah, go for it. He's a mess." I'm going to use that a lot. And this woman, I really got lucky. You know, this woman had sponsored it and been a part of that home group for a long time, and she believed to the tips of her toes in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous as presented in this book, my poor book, it's all in pieces, but, and this other guy didn't know what to do with me, but she did. She said, "Come with me." And we went through this book from the Just Like You Do It, from that very first title page through the table of contents and all the way through. And she knew what she was doing. And I read things like, you know, Dr. Silkworth tells me, I think, yeah, there it is. One of my favorite things Dr. Silkworth said was, frothy emotional appeal seldom, I crossed that out and said never, suffices. The message which will interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. And man, I thought I had all kinds of depth and weight. I mean, later on in the book, it talks about moral and philosophical convictions galore that we would like to have lived up to, but we just couldn't. We failed utterly. And the one thing that mattered most to me in the world was to be able to be with my son again, have him answer the phone, do stuff together. What's that? Is that my timer? Holy crap. Okay, I gotta hurry here. So we went through this book, and at first, us Al-Anons, we recommend that you don't read it yourself, that your sponsor's supposed to take you through. And I read things like, my book is such a mess. In Bill's story, he says things, I'm not going to sit here and read the whole book to you guys, but he says, my brain raced uncontrollably, and I had a terrible sense of impending calamity. And I think every single person in this room has felt that. And a couple pages later, he says, this was me. This was an alcoholic, the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous writing this, but this was me. No words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in that bitter morass of self-pity. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed. Alcoholism was my master. And that's how that happened. And I don't know how it happened. I look back on it. We were just at a meeting the other night, Friday night, right? And it says, many of us who come to Al-Anon, I go to lots of meetings, Alcoholics Anonymous too, if we come just because of minor things like social embarrassment or, I don't remember what the other one was, but, we get well in Al-Anon quickly. But, I don't know anybody that comes to Al-Anon that thinks that these minor events are very minor. So, I go through the steps. I come to this part in the book, and it says that I'm the actor. I'll do anything. I just want to run the show. I just want you to do what I want you to do, and life will be great. I try to arrange the lights, the ballet, the everything, and then it says, and many of them resent this. Many of the other actors resent this, and they try to snatch all they can from the play, and that's exactly what was happening with my son and I. I suffered. I was a victim of the delusion that I can only wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this life if Larry manages it well. And I was a dead duck. Anyway. So we go through the steps, and I get a little hope, and I do this searching and fearless moral inventory, and it turns out maybe I owe Lucas an amends, when sure as hell, the last 10 years, he owed me. Tells me in the middle of page 67 that it don't matter what he does. What matters is what I do. And there is no my part. It's mine. And so there was a guy up here in Mount Vernon, some of you may remember him, Randy, who did workshops, and I went to his workshops back to back to back till finally he had to kick me out. He said, listen, you've been through the book enough, now go out and practice what you're learning. And I went, no, damn it, I like sitting in here and reading this book. But I did that. Lucas ended up in jail for an extended period of time. Well, it wasn't that long. It was just 10 months, I think. And When he got out, 2007, I made my amends to it. After those 3 or 4 times through the steps, I could see, Larry, you were wrong. And I told my son that. I said, son, a remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fill the bill. I was wrong. And I really hoped that he would put his arms around me and go, oh, Dad, thank you so much. I love you, and I'll never drink again. Guess what? But looking back on it, that's when he started answering his phone. And he'd come over for dinner, and he'd invite us over for dinner, and we began to heal. We got to go camping together again. How much time I got left? 5 minutes? And we were actually going to do a project together. And we had to put together this bid package for this project, and I called him up one day and I said, I'm coming up. And he said, well, today is not that great of a day, Dad. And I said, oh, come on. We got to get this done. Let's do it. Bullheaded Larry. Guess I hadn't learned that much. But I went up and Lucas was just wasted. He was sitting with his finger over the calculator, and anyway, I said, I'll see you later. I'll come back another time. But you know what I did not do? I did not say a single word. Oh, here you are again, huh? Oh, great. And we're going to do this project together? Yeah, right. And look at you. You're a mess. But I didn't say that. And what happened is, on my way down the road back home, I got a text from Lucas saying, Dad, thank you so much for coming up and trying to teach me what you know, and we'll get this going, and I just appreciate you, and I love you. And I'm so glad I didn't say anything. I'd have ruined that, as I've ruined so many things. Whoa. I'd like to report to you that my son Lucas is right over there, but he's not. There's a line in the book that says, many pursue it to the gates of insanity or death. Alcoholism took my son's life. On May 7th, 2012, my son Dan came home from work, and he got out of his car, and he had just this contorted, distorted look on his face that I had never seen before. I said, what? And he said, he just got a call from some sheriff from Lucas's house, and I think he said Lucas has died. So we jumped in my truck and drove up there as fast as we could go, past everybody on the Pioneer Highway. And I got there, and there was the medical examiner and the sheriff. But I'd been in Al-Anon for about 7 years. And I got to kneel over my son's body in his kitchen. the loneliest feeling I have ever had. But Helen and I were doing a workshop. That was a Monday. We missed Tuesday, but we did not miss the next Tuesday because you guys were at his memorial. You know, there was a bunch of people there. He was a popular guy, but there was 50 of you guys, and I didn't know it at the time. I had to count them up in the guest book, and it was really funny. I stood up in front to, somebody's got to say something, and I said, "Hi, I'm Larry," and 50 people went, "Hi, Larry," and I laughed, and I mean, I don't know. Anyway, my message is, always has been and always will be, you can love your kid, you can love your husband, you can love them. There's more to them than alcoholism. I had lost sight that my son was a good man. I totally lost it, and I found it in the nick of time. And who knew? I didn't know. So thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I love the big book. I hang out with guys where I'm often the only Al-Anon in the room. Where's Steve? There he is over there, yeah. And I don't care about that. I hang out with people that believe in and love this book and want to recover from not just alcoholism, but we want a new design for living. We want to be able to love people. We want them to know that we love them. Time's up. My timer is right in the front row. So anyway, I don't know what I said. Here's my notes. And I don't know if I made any sense, but yeah, I guess I'm done.